Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. During my freshman year of high school, I was in the marching band. My school's marching band was absolutely massive, with over 130 people. As a result, the sound that we make is incredibly loud, which is appropriate for a marching band of this size. While the band was sitting in the stands, the entitled mother stormed up to me, visibly angry, holding her crying child's hand. "Can I help you, miss? Can you tell your friends to play quieter? It's hurting my child's ears." We are a marching band. We are supposed to play loud to express ourselves. If you don't like the noise, I suggest you leave." The entitled mother shouts in a very aggressive tone. "Play quieter or I will call the police and file a noise complaint." "Why don't you go speak with our band director?" She walks down the stands to the band director and shouts at him to tell us to play quieter. I overheard the conversation and he basically said the same thing that I did. Clearly getting angrier, she tried to swipe my drumsticks out of my hands. I'm a percussionist, by the way, and even tried to stop the marching band from leaving the stands to enter the field to play the halftime show. After the halftime show, I could clearly hear her child screaming and crying. And then a few minutes later, what do you know? The cops are here. She rambles to the cops about how loud we are playing and asks to file a noise complaint. And the police then said this: "Ma'am, this is a marching band. Marching bands are supposed to be loud. If you do not back down, you will be arrested for disturbing the peace." And the entitled mother's face turned pale white. She then walked back to the stands weeping along with her child. The cop then asked the band director if he would like to press charges, and he sure as hell did. The entitled mother ended up getting a $2,000 fine. To this day, I'm still wondering why she decided to come to a football game if her child hated noise. Next story. I just received my last payment from this event, so I figured it was time to share the whole saga. Grab a drink and sit back, relax, and let me take you on this wild journey that all began a long time ago and not far down the street from here. My girlfriends and I were cruising up and down the main thoroughfare of our city as teenagers that have just gotten their first cars tend to do. This is the main drag through the heart of our city, and it's where everyone would race on Friday and Saturday nights. Kill time cruising before a movie, just hang out and be seen. We're driving along on a beautiful Friday afternoon when from the back seat, I spot a horde of teenage boys in a parking lot waiting for traffic to clear so they can race. They have parked their crotch rockets and cars like they are for sale. Every door open, hoods up, underglow shining, speakers blasting, and so on. And like half of these guys have their shirts off. Being a red-blooded teenage girl, I shout, "Oh my god, Kirsten, look!" But Kirsten was driving the car. To this day, we both try to take the blame for this because I should not have shouted for her to look and she should not have turned around to look. So of course we rear-ended the car in front of us at about 15 miles per hour. Not bad at all. We got out. Kirsten and Sarah called their moms from the parking lot, and I called the police while checking on the people in the other car. The passenger jumped out and pointed at me, told me to stay away. They went to the payphone. Yes, this happened that long ago. At the fast food joint we were in front of. I peeked into the car to ask the driver if they are okay, and she was leaned all the way back in her seat. She wouldn't look at me, but she said she couldn't feel her arms. So I'm like, oh no. Hey dispatch, send me an ambulance too. This lady says she can't feel her arms. And then I started to freak out. Did we just paralyze some poor woman because we're dumb jerks? Oh god, we just ruined somebody's life. I'm asking the driver if there is anything I can do. I think I actually asked if I could make her more comfortable. I was panicked and just repeating the dispatcher at this point. Don't worry, the ambulance will be here soon. And then she turned her head towards me and asked who hit her. I was confused and asked her what she meant. She wanted to know which one of us was driving, but I didn't want to tell her for some reason. I was just, no, don't worry about that, you'll be fine. And she wasn't having it. She got pissed and started screaming at me to tell her who was driving. So I just screamed back that she was crazy and I wasn't going to tell her anything. And then the dispatcher says, "Miss, please just back away from the vehicle." Swear to God, that dispatcher was a psychic or something because I ducked out of the car right as the driver swung her meaty fist at my head. And then it was on. She ripped off her seat belts, not paralyzed after all, and launched out of the car, running around the rear end to come at me. So I ran screaming around the front end. Straight out of a cartoon, she turned around and ran around the other side of the car, making me turn around to run the opposite way, back and forth around the front and back of the car until she committed to a side and just ran the other way to the parking lot. Kirsten was banging on the door of the fast food joint, but an employee was holding the door closed and shaking her head. I will never forget that poor woman's face. Sarah was on the phone crying, and I could hear the sirens in the distance, and dispatch was entirely too calm asking me to explain the problem. On the 911 recording, you can just hear me panting, "What the hell?" with every exhale. You guys, this woman was short, stout, and she ran like a juiced up bull. She was so fast I could feel her catching up to me. So I pivoted to the side and she whooshed past me. As she continued right towards Sarah, clotheslined her as she ran by, and headed to Kirsten, who at this point had seen the writing on the wall and was running away. But there wasn't really anywhere to go except the entrance of the drive-thru. So Kirsten and the enraged driver disappeared around the back of the building. I was picking Sarah up off the ground when an ambulance, fire truck, and two police cruisers pulled up. EMT popped up first and we ran at him screaming nonsense about a crazy lady at the drive-thru. And then Kirsten came flying around the far corner of the building with beast mode right on her heels. I have never seen somebody stop so fast. She came out around the corner, saw all the emergency responders, stopped and dropped like a felled tree before pretending to shake uncontrollably. This lady tried to pull a fake seizure right in front of the EMTs and the police. Her friend, the passenger, who had been on the payphone this whole time, dropped down next to her and started wailing that somebody needed to do something and help her and arrest us. Really, coming hard was the dramatics. So the EMTs loaded her up and they went off to the hospital while the three of us gave our statements to the police. We assumed that was the end. Insurance was supposed to deal with anything else, right? First, the driver tried to sue all three of us and the insurance company. Pain, suffering, medical bills, loss of income, the whole works. She claimed that after rear-ending her, I dragged her out of the car and Kirsten was actually chasing her through the drive-thru. The 911 recording disapproved her claim of being pulled from the vehicle, and CCTV footage from the fast food restaurant showed her as a pursuer. The suit was eventually dismissed and she had to pay our lawyer's fees. Which really sucked for her because Sarah's lawyer got photos of her frolicking at a music festival when she was supposedly suffering from a whiplash, double knee injuries, and constant dizziness. Boom. That's insurance fraud. She spent a year in jail and paid a hefty fine. And we assumed that was the end. But no. A few months after she was released, we all began to find dead animals left on our front porches, in our mailboxes, in a swimming pool, hung over the side mirror of the car, and so on. Definitely some unusual places to find dead animals. Then the phone call started. Hang-ups, faxes, random screaming. Kirsten swore she saw a car following her between school and a coffee house. Sarah thought she saw a similar car in her neighborhood a few times. We all knew who was doing it. But the cops couldn't really do anything without proof. Our parents were pissed because this was the dawn of the digital era and we all had cell phones, but crazy driver lady was blowing up the landline and it was harassing our parents more than us. And the dead animals were terrifying our siblings. So Kirsten's mom spotted a guard dog and the next time somebody dropped a dead raccoon in their petunias, Duke was gonna give them what for. So everyone in Kirsten's house was sitting back enjoying a little TV one night when a noise was heard in the bushes right before a dead squirrel was hurled through the open window. And Duke leapt right out of the window and tackled the crazy driver lady in the petunias. She had dressed in all black, ski mask, gloves and everything. Literally the uniform of the nefarious. Kirsten said Duke had her whole shoulder in his big mouth. It was pinning her down while they called the police. She was hauled off to jail while the cops searched her car found down the road. They found meth, stolen credit cards, pills, a knife, trash bags, and cleaning supplies. To get her to plead to a whole slew of lesser charges, the prosecutor threatened to pursue kidnapping charges, even though it was a real stretch. She ended up being sentenced to 5 years, served 3, and thankfully none of us have heard from her since. But it took over a decade for her to pay us off. The crazy thing is, she just refused to make payments. So the court started taking it out of her tax returns and depositing it on debit cards they gave us. Next story. Not long after I had moved into my house, I got a dog. About a year later, a new neighbor moved onto our street and he also had a dog. Everything seemed fine to me for about 7-ish months, and then I noticed that the older woman across the street had handmade little signs on sticks stuck into the ground along the front of her lawn saying, "Please don't let your dog poo in my yard." I thought it was pretty funny and chalked it up to her being a cranky old lady. Not long after that I was cleaning dog poo in my own yard, I had a great designated patch of grass on the opposite side of the driveway ideal for this. When I scooped a gift that seemed larger than most of my dogs, I figured maybe I had given too many treats, I don't know, didn't think too much of it. A week later I was doing my daily gift scooping again when I noticed another really large pile of gifts, only this time there was a bunch of corn kernels in it. Disgusting. So I instantly knew this was definitely not my dog's gifts. I was pissed. Then I remembered the cranky old lady's signs. Maybe she wasn't just cranky and old after all. Or at the very least, justifiably so. I decided I would keep a much closer eye on what was going on in my neighborhood. I pretty much keep to myself and do not bother anyone. One day I'm washing dishes at the sink and out the window I see a dog, unleashed, come running into my backyard. I'm watching, trying to rinse and dry my hands because my dog is flipping out barking. As I get to the door, the unknown dog squats and starts dropping bombs. I flew outside and was about to start yelling at the dog when I saw the owner standing at the end of my driveway watching. I was absolutely astounded. I said, "Hey, your dog just pooped in my yard. What the hell?" And he responded with, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you need to clean that up. Now." He looks around and pats his pockets and says, "I don't have anything to put it in." So I asked why he hadn't brought a baggie along like a normal, courteous person, to which he shrugged and said, "Do you have one I can use?" "Nope, sorry, no can do." I told him he'd have to go get one and come back, and that I would wait. So he did. He walked home, got a bag, and when he returned, I was waiting in my driveway. He cleaned up his dog's mess and we had no issues for the next few months. Towards the end of that spring, I noticed every right-to-be cranky old lady had her handmade signs up again. Oh no, not again. Did this guy not learn? And damn, how rude. I decided I would have to again keep a lookout. About a week and a half later, over Memorial Day weekend, My brother, his wife, and my two nieces, ages 4 and 2, came over for a cookout. The adults were chatting, cooking, and having a few drinks, while the kids were playing in the backyard by the garden. When my 4-year-old niece came over and started tugging on my brother's arm, the smell hit us both instantly. They had been playing in dog gifts, and those gifts contained the telltale pieces of corn. I thought my brother's wife was going to go ballistic. Who could blame her? And I will tell you that if looks could kill, I will be a cold decomposing body in the ground right now. She asked me why would I let them play where my dog's bathroom is. I kept telling her that I didn't. We have a designated poo area. I don't know why there was a poo, but I did know. And oh boy did I know. It took everything in me not to march down the street and confront Dog Poo Man. I decided it would only start trouble because I didn't know if I could keep my temper under control. And needless to say, it ruined the cookout and pretty much the whole visit, and I have never been so embarrassed in my life. A week went by and I was still infuriated. Even more so after stewing in it. I decided that this called for some good old-fashioned revenge and I was going to school this jerk once and for all. Spring turned into summer and I let my anger motivate me to be patient. My plan would take some time. And as time passed, I continued my daily poop scooping. Only now, instead of disposing of it, I was collecting it in a bucket with a lid. I would leave it out in the hot sun for maximum odor. After 3.5 humid, scorching summer months of collecting turds, the final phase of the mission was quickly approaching. I think it is worth noting that I did not see Dog Poo Man all summer, or his dog, and I wondered if he had finally learned or gotten an earful from one too many neighbors. For me, it didn't matter. His fate was sealed. I chose a beautiful night. Fall was just around the corner, so the temperatures were cooler and humidity lower. I sat out by the fire and got pretty plastered. Sometime between 2:30 and 3 a.m., I took my bucket of feces and staggered down the street. I remember standing there for a moment, smiling as I imagined Dog Poo Man walking out his door in the morning to the sights and smells that awaited him. Then I tore off the lid and flung all my gifts everywhere. And it was a lot of it. It was one of the most satisfying things I've ever done. I'm probably going to hell, but it was worth it. I drove by his house the next morning, and he had hired a cleanup crew. He glared at me as I passed. He was pissed, but I was smiling, elated. I'm willing to bet that man's dog never poo in anyone's yard again, ever. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.